Hiya YouTube, welcome back to part 3 of a revisit to my old favourite armies. And today we're sticking with bolt action, and this is probably, I would say, to a pretty high degree, my most favourite army I've ever done in my life. I mean, my Napoleonics are pretty close to it, but at the moment they're still an unfinished project, so they don't really count. But certainly from all of my older armies, these are definitely my favourite army. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed doing them. I didn't really know hardly anything about the Italians at all before I started this project. I did masses and masses of research, and was very, very careful in picking colours and deciding on a colour scheme. I knew I wanted to do desert because I wasn't a massive fan of the sort of European uniform. Yeah, strangely enough, by the time I'd finished the army, one of the Italian tanks, the M39 40, or rather its slightly later version, the M1441, ended up becoming one of my favourite tanks. So as you can see, there's quite a lot here. It's basically, when I first completed the army, it was basically 2 platoons plus support weapons and vehicles. There was a couple of vehicle choices, and also several months later, I picked up a few other little bits and pieces, some extra vehicles, and also I completed another platoon of Italian Paratroopers. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get all these guys into one video. So this could be quite a long video, but I'll try and get past the infantry fairly quickly. I'll just kind of give you a quick glance at them over the camera and just point out specifics about any particularly special figures, and then I'll probably I might do the vehicles. I might do the vehicles and teams first. I might go slightly out of sync. I might do the vehicles first, then the teams, and then I'll start doing the infantry. Like I say, the infantry are more or less all the same, because obviously they're at the time there was only one box of Italian infantry available, and even my Burgeslieri are basically just the same Italian infantry, but with different heads, basically. But yeah, so I think that's the way I'm going to go for it. So in a second I'll bring the camera a little bit closer forward, and then we'll start going through the vehicles and just a small selection of figures that I actually picked up from Perry's, and they haven't really been integrated into the army, but obviously where I was slightly better at painting, because I think I did these guys maybe a year and a half later than the actual army. These guys actually turned out really, really cool, and plus they're actually really cool figures. So I will show you those slightly out of order, along with the vehicles and stuff, as they're not really integrated into the army. So let's get going. I'll try and keep this as short as possible. I can't remember exactly how long my first version of this video was back in the day. This was actually my third bolt action army that I'd actually completed. I mean, obviously not including the Germans and Americans that you get in starter sets, but actually like from scratch armies. Obviously the first 2 being Japanese and US Marine Corps, and this was my third foray into a bolt action army, and I actually collected practically all of it, certainly all the basic army, before I actually started painting, which was something that I did used to do a lot. So I think basically my Japanese, my US Marines, and my Italians, and just about every other bolt action army I've done since has actually all been probably 90% collected all at once from the start. so that I didn't have to, lose my groove waiting for things to be delivered, etc. Okay, so let's get going, and we're going to start with the oddities. These are things that have been added later. They don't really count as part of the army, but obviously you could swap bits and pieces around and include them if you wanted to, obviously. So we're going to start off with. I actually brought all of this stuff all at the same time. So we have this little tankette here, which is a Fiat L33, I believe, and you can see it's a beautiful little model. It's Perry's. It's metal and resin, I believe, and it came with some really nice options. It came with a choice of weapons, which I've actually magnetised, so you can swap them out between these twin machine guns or the L37 light anti-tank gun, and it's a really beautiful little model. It actually came with 2 crew, so you could have both crews sticking out if you wanted. I decided to just have one sticking out because I did kind of want it to be sort of semi-combat-y, although I'm sure as soon as the bullets start flying, this guy will get back into get back down into his turret and button up, because I wouldn't want to be sticking out that high. Plus these things are pretty dire, although strangely enough, I think I read that it was like something like 70% of all Italian armour in the sort of like the early war was actually made up of these little tankette things, which are absolutely terrible. So yeah, that's the L33, Fiat, I believe, Fiat L33, light tankette, and that's a Perry's model. Next up, we'll go for another Fiat. Funnily enough, this is the Fiat 508 CM field car or staff car. Again, this is another Perry's model, a really beautiful little model. I was hunting around for some sort of staff vehicle, and strangely enough, this was the first vehicle that I saw on the Perry's site, and I snapped it up immediately, along with the L33 there. And so these guys, obviously, you've got the Ram's Head division. They've put a windscreen in using plastic from a blister. Get a driver and all the sort of details inside. So to put the hardtop up, you could have, there's an option for it to be down if you wanted. I put the front number plate on myself because it wasn't there for some reason. However, there is a back number plate, and it's a really nice little model, and it actually came with 2 staff officers as well. Sort of arguing over, perhaps they're lost and they're arguing over where they're going. But yeah, some really nice officer figures here. Let's try and get the light on them a little bit better. So here we go. So yeah, really nice couple of figures here. So obviously this guy's some sort of high-ranking officer. I think I've made him, he hasn't got his name on the bottom there, but I think I made him possibly a colonel. And his map holder here, his map turned out pretty cool. He's also an officer, but of a lower rank. I think I made this guy a captain. And yeah, really nice little set. And it wasn't too pricey either, from what I can remember. So that is the Fiat 508 staff car. Next we'll go on to armoured cars, and only one. I do really want to try and get one of those Sahariana desert trucks at some point, but I've never actually got around to getting it. But here we have the classic Italian armoured car that everyone seems to go for. It's the Auto Belinda, the AB41. And this is it's quite an interesting little vehicle. You can see that it's kind of been designed for the desert. It's got these big all-terrain wheels. This is the original Warlord resin model. It has a magnetised turret, which is something that I tend to do with all my resin vehicles because the turrets are prone to falling off. It's a really interesting vehicle. It's one of those ones that's got like a dual drive. So that basically means that you can actually drive it. There's two steering positions. You can either drive it forwards or you can drive it backwards, as if it was a vehicle within its own right. So that's probably why it's got a machine gun mounted on the back there, so that the driver could actually, or the driver's assistant could obviously change positions, and they've got a little bit of firepower towards the back. Although obviously the turret could swing around. But yeah, that's the Auto Blender AB41, and probably a mainstay in most people's Italian armies. Okay, next up we'll go for, this tank was originally designed to go into my second platoon. It's the Semovente 7518, probably one of the best averagey type Italian tanks you could get from the Italians. They're not known for having that powerful tanks, although this one, obviously, this 75mm gun packs a little bit more punch than the lighter armed Carro Martio M1340s, etc. With their, I think they've got like a 20mm cannon, or the 20mm gun, I mean, or 30mm gun. It's not very big. 37 probably, actually. Although I think it did get beefed up a little bit when it came out in its second version. But yeah, this is the Semovente. It's based, the colour scheme's based on a picture from one of the Osprey Italian medium tanks books. And yeah, I was really happy. Again, this is a resin Warlord model. Very nice. And of course an aerial made from stretch sprue to really bring it out. So that is the Semovente 7518. Next up, I originally only had one of these, but a little bit further on down the line I decided that I want to get another, and ultimately I want to get three, which is why I've actually got a Rubicon one sitting over in the side there. These are, of course, my favourite Italian tanks, the well, I think they're actually designed to be the M1340s, but I like to count them as the M4041, which is the slightly later version. Now these are, they're actually both, let's get them both up. They're both Warlord resin models. This is obviously before the time when they came with cards and the flames and stuff. I'm not sure. I'm sure you could probably still get them. I know Warlord have released a plastic kit for these, with with the Italian, and apparently they're oversized, which would mean that if I was to get one of those, it would be bigger than this, which not very good. However, I think that the Rubicon one is basically going to end up more or less the same size, so that's great. This was originally my first one. I marked up as the lead vehicle of the platoon, and since I got my second one, it's been demoted to the first vehicle of its particular platoon. Again, it's part of the Ramshead division, and I actually made the pinnacle machine gun myself. It's converted out of a Japanese LMG, actually, the Lmg 99 from the plastic sprue. They're actually pretty similar looking. They're just sort of like slightly shorter barreled, and they don't have that sort of ribbed barrel like the Japanese LMG does. And I made a pinnacle mount for it out of a, funnily enough, the sprue that Warlord put their heads on. They're kind of made out of like these little triangles with the head attached, and I basically cut one off, and because it's a triangle, it's got like a flat bottom, and obviously a pointed top, so it made a perfect machine gun mounting, and because I really wanted to give them pelletal machine guns. And I also think that the desert scheme that I chose for these guys came out really cool too. Really nice looking model. Definitely one of my favourite tank models of all of my bolt action vehicles. We'll now go for the second one, which is the newer one. Now this one has been obviously remarked up as the lead tank. Again, obviously the Ramshead division, and this guy is mounting a Perry's Italian tank crewman, who I've actually had to dig out some of the turret for him to fit in, but I was really happy with how he turned out. And again, my second one of these. Again, all of these got magnetised turrets. Again, because obviously they're resin, so they'd just fall out if you were to tip it to its side. And of course, both of them have the sprue aerials. And again, a really beautiful little model. I'm kind of, I've got to admit, there's a little part inside me that's urging me to start doing my my Rubicon one. So that I can make these guys a full little platoon of 3. But yeah, definitely my favourite tank and strangely enough belonging to the Italians. But yeah, I really do love these tanks. So that is, I think that's all the vehicles now. So that's all the vehicles out the way. Next up, we'll start working through the teams, and like the machine gun teams, the anti-tank mortars, howitzers, etc. Although actually, before I do that, I'm actually going to go through the odd figures that came. That I also picked up when I brought my vehicles from Perry's. These are Perry's. I can't remember the name of the pack. It could be officers and sergeants, because I think they're all basically officers and sergeants. But these guys painted up really, really nice. I don't know how I managed to do it, but they painted up really beautifully. So this is an NCO figure here. He's got a Carcano carbine, and he's all basically in full desert gear. They did, for some bizarre reason, one of them kept the grey on their water bottles. It's got a map case there, and yeah, really nice figure. I suppose I could use the NCOs as assistants. We also have some. Oh, here's another NCO. Again from that same pack. Again, Carcano carbine. Really, really nice figures. It almost makes me wish that I'd brought a few packs of Perry's. This guy's actually got a rank written on the bottom of his base, a Marciello Ordinario, which is sergeant. So that's another. Then we I think we're going into officer territory now, or at least I decided to make a lot of these figures officers. So here we have a couple of guys with the Beretta submachine guns. This guy I've made an officer. You don't get many officers with rifles out of the sculpts, and I thought this guy would be perfect. He's got his pistol there, and he's got the Sahara jacket, and he kind of just looks like an officer, this guy. So I made him a lieutenant. So that's another officer, although I suppose you could use him as a sergeant as well. Then we have this chap. Again, similar sort of story, although I think I made this guy a sergeant. but again, a beautiful model. Yeah, because he's got more webbing, which is why I decided to make him a sergeant. And then we have two actual officer figures. Again, beautiful, beautiful figures. We have an officer here. And finally, another officer, who I quite often put with the Jeep. Actually, he kind of fits in with the trio, talking about you know, where they are. So, like, if I bring the staff car back in, and then put the guys down discussing where they are, and bring this guy in, he kind of fits in really well with the little scene, which is why I tend to when I have him in the display cabinet to actually put him with him. So he kind of fits in as if he's joining in with the conversation. So that's those. That's the odd figures out of the way now, and now I can start going into the teams. But yeah, really nice models from Perry's there, and of course figures as well. Okay, so let's start going into. Oh, we've got a couple more oddity figures here. We have a couple of dismounted tank crew here. These are Perry's as well. I can't remember where they came from. They could have possibly been in the Italian Tank Commanders pack, which I still actually have quite a few guys floating around in. But yeah, they're really cool figures. There's this guy sort of running away. He's taking his headgear off. I've given him the rank of a teniente, which is a lieutenant. And then finally we have one surrendering. Again, really cool figure. This guy's set up as a senior private. So he's kind of like, he'd be one of the tank crew. The other guy perhaps is the commander. Anyway, that's those guys out of the way now. So let's just move the camera forward a little bit, and let me just readjust myself. And then we'll start going through the teams. Okay, so let's start off with the big boys. The 105 howitzer. Now the Italians used. Here we go. Put it into the screen here. Zoom out a little bit. So this is the Warlord Gun. The Italians used two types of medium howitzer. They used a Modello 14-100/17, and they also used a number of captured Austro-Hungarian Canon M15s from World War I, and I think that's what this is. I've never actually seen pictures to prove it, but this to me looks like a World War I piece of artillery. It's got that sort of like that distinctive big bulge on the front and the big wheels, which is very sort of distinctive of World War I artillery. It's a really nice kit. I seem to remember the gun going together really well. It wasn't difficult at all. Obviously, Warlord and the masters of having very difficult gun kits to put together. Yeah, it's a really nice set, this, and I was very happy with how it turned out. So that is the medium howitzer. Get that out of the way. Next up, the mainstay for all bolt action armies. We have the 81 Mike Mortar, or in this case the 8114 Modello 35, 81mm mortar. Pretty basic, you know, three figures of the mortar. And now if you go back to my channel, around about the same sort of time that I was doing my Italians, you'll see that this particular chap here actually did a how to paint tutorial on him, or at least how I paint anyway, because I don't say that I'm in any way a master painter, but I basically do a how I paint this guy, and that's the figure that I used. So you can see that he came out pretty cool. So that is the 81 Mike Mortar. Next up, we'll go for, let's go for the lightest gun that the Italians have got, and this is the 4732 Elefantino, and you can see that I've kind of designed it so that it's poking out of some desert shrubbery in a sort of an ambush. They've taken the wheels off it to lower its profile. We've got the binoculars guy pretty well hidden down. The other two have had to perhaps raise their heads a little bit further than they should have, perhaps, but still a pretty nasty little ambush. But then again, unfortunately, it's only a 47mm gun, so you won't be taking out much with that. You know, you might perhaps be able to take out a universal carrier or something, or a truck. You might be lucky on a Stuart, but yeah, you know, not a particularly amazing gun, but still a cool model. That is the Elefantino, and of course this one is actually from my second platoon, so it's crewed by Burgeslieri, the elite light infantry. And yeah, you can see the guy with the sun hat there. I used sun hats for all of my NCOs and officers. So that is the Elefantino. Then we'll go for the kind of next caliber down. So this is the anti-tank rifle. This is the Solthern 20mm anti-tank gun. And as far as anti-tank guns go, this is actually a bit of a beast. It's essentially a 5-round semi-automatic 20mm cannon, and it's a little bit disappointing that you know, it basically counts as a basic anti-tank gun. You know, so basically the Warlord have designated this thing as the same sort of effectiveness as a 50 caliber Boys Mark 1 anti-tank rifle, when this thing is you know, a 5-round semi-automatic 20mm cannon, semi-auto cannon. It's yeah, it's a shame. I suppose you could house roll it, give it more penetration or whatever, and maybe give it I don't know, D3 shots or something. I don't know, but it's a pretty cool little model. I think it was a bit of a nasty little pain to put together, I think. I can't really remember. And then of course, obviously, I decided to mount them up this way because it kind of looked better like this than putting them on, putting one on a circular base. So it kind of makes a little scene up. But that's the Solthern 20 mic anti-tank gun. Then let's go for some medium machine guns. Oh no, we'll go for the light mortar next. So this again is Burgeslieri, and this is a Brixia light mortar, probably 20 mic, probably 20mm. Nice little model. I did decide to put one of the guys on a round base this time. I can't remember the reason why. Perhaps just to save space on the table. But yeah, nice little model. Very easy to put together. I think it was like 2-piece. The mortar was had his hands modded on it. You just joined the hands to the arms. Nice little model. Although, and I suppose it could be quite effective. As a sort of an anti-personnel type thing, but obviously quite difficult to hit with mortars. Then we'll go for the 2 Nmg teams. So this is my first one. This is would be part of my first platoon, which is made up of I think one regular and one green unit of infantry. And again, really nice model. The weapon is the the Beretta M38 light machine gun. It's not light machine. No, that's wrong. That's the Infantry's Lmg. This is the Breeder M38. No, it's not. It says Breeder M37. Sorry. Heavy machine gun. Obviously, again, we come across this odd distinction of Warlord. Basically, making heavy MGs into medium machine guns. These sort of weapons, I mean, this is not, it's not really designed to be used without a tripod, and the definition of a heavy machine gun is sustained fire, and putting it on a tripod basically is giving it the ability for sustained fire. So it's, you know, it may be a medium machine gun, but this is in its heavy machine gun role. But unfortunately for this particular machine gun, it's only fed with these stripper clips of ammo. It's actually a really interesting weapon, and if you type in Breeder M37 on YouTube, there's a really interesting video of a guy firing one of these things, and he sort of goes into its mechanisms and all that sort of stuff. It's a really interesting little video, and it's also the same for the light machine gun, the M38. Again, which is a really interesting little weapon. It's definitely worth watching the video on. But I'll cover that a little bit later when we get to the infantry squad. So yeah, this is the First Platoon's Nmg, and you can see that it's kind of this is the desert basing flock that I was using. I can't remember the name of the company. I have actually still got some left, but it's hidden within my my terrain box down there. My sort of my modelling box of like terrains and grasses and snows and all that sort of stuff. Flock. Yeah, it's really nice. I think it's like a railway company's the actual flock company is like designed originally for railways. But it's a really nice desert sand, and of course I used some slate rock there, and we've got some Tajima desert tufts and little desert bush dioramas with like little bits of rock in as well. And yeah, just a really nice little scene. Ended up being behind like a little desert berm. So that is the first Nmg team. The second one is Burgeslieri. Oh, that's the Elefantino. Here we go. This is probably my favourite one. Again, same weapon, but you can see that I've kind of built up a slate stone wall, and it's all sort of like weathered and wind beaten, and it just turned out really cool looking. Yeah, there's the guys sat up behind it. And of course, all Burgeslieri crew. So that is I think that's all the teams now. That's all the teams done. We can start going into the infantry now. Like I said, I'm going to try and just brush past the infantry if I can. I will show you them, but you know, we won't dwindle too much. So first of all, let's start with the command people. So we'll start off with a high-ranking officer here. We have a major. This chap, I think he's a Warlord figure, but he's pretty cool all the same. Again, he's got the sun hat, the sun hat head, which again, like I said, I use for officers and NCOs. Yeah, really nice figure. And if we look on the bottom of his base, just about every Italian figure that I've got, including teams, have their rank written on the bottom in Italian and British. So this is a Maggiore or Major, and they also have a name which was basically done by a random Italian World War II name generator, which you can just hunt down on the internet. So this guy is Armen Fernando. Then we have I suppose this guy could be a spotter or a assistant. guy on the radio. I believe he's from the Warlord Command Pack, which is probably where the Major's from, actually. Then we have the Lieutenant of the Platoon. Now this guy is a Teniente Primo, which is basically a First Lieutenant. I do quite like the officer figures from Warlord. Really nice little pose. Got his Beretta pistol out. You can see the officer's got his. I was basically one of those painting up officers. I always tend to give them the tailored jackets, which basically most officers did, and they would always end up being slightly different shades of the sort of desert colour. So you see that most of my officers have all got kind of slightly different shades of sand coloured jackets. So that is the First Lieutenant, and to go with him he has a Marciello Capo, which is a Staff Sergeant helper, and this chap is basically just a standard trooper, but he has got his full desert kit, including his gas mask cover there, and of course all Italian troops had grey water bottles, and they also tended to have grey ground sheets too, all European. So that's the assistant for the lieutenant. Then we'll go for the First Platoon. Now, like I say, all these guys are basically all the same because they're all from essentially the only infantry box that you could get, although obviously there are some variations in figure. I think that they had like a pool of figures, of which were more than you get in a box, so you'd get a little bit of variety. So here we have the sergeant. Nice sergeant-y looking pose. This guy has got a full Carcano rifle, and he has, of course, the sun hat, which I give to all NCOs and officers. And rank-wise, Marciello Ordinario, which is a normal sergeant, and you can see that my very first squad has only got abbreviated names, so this is A. Beratello. Before I decided to actually write the names on with pencil and give them the full names. So every squad has got a sergeant, a corporal. Did I actually put a corporal in my very first squad? Perhaps I didn't put a corporal in my very first squad. So yeah, let's just run you through the infantry then. So here we have a standard sort of rifle guy. This guy is, apart from his puttees, all in desert gear. Obviously at the start of the war there was uniform shortages, which meant that you get guys mixing up bits of uniform. So we have a couple of guys with their European trousers, and this chap has actually got his European gas mask and actually his European webbing, which again was something something that you'd see quite a lot. And of course this particular one has a entrenching tool too. So let's just carry on going. So we have a chap throwing a hand grenade. Now the Italians were famous for their red hand grenades. I can't remember what they used to call them. They had sort of like a nickname. But yeah, it's just a standard infantryman throwing a grenade. Then we have another chap with a European trousers. Have a guy working his bolt there. This guy's all in desert gear. Desert gear, of course, is the desert uniform, the brown, cork brown webbing, the khaki puttees, and then obviously the grey water bottle and the khaki or cork brown gas mask case. But again, it was quite common to see them with just the grey gas mask case from their European uniform. So we have a kneeling guy here. They are really nice figures, actually. It's a shame that the new plastics are actually a lot bigger than these guys, which is one of the really disappointed me, actually. I was really quite looking forward to getting a box of those plastics and maybe building up another platoon, but I saw a particular review and they showed just how big they were in comparison to these chaps. I mean, these chaps go perfectly with the Perrys, which is, I would say, probably the closest Warlord model that I've ever seen compared to a Perry's figure. They're almost at exactly the same scale. Because obviously Warlord are normally known for being slightly chunkier. They might be the same size as a Perry's, but they're normally, certainly with the Napoleonics, the figures are a little bit on the chunky side compared to a Perry's guy. So then finally we have the LMG. Now this is obviously the Beretta M38 Lmg. Very interesting weapon. It's got a really odd mechanism and really weird magazines, which is why if you I said to go check out that YouTube video because it's really interesting. Obviously this weapon was plagued with problems in the desert. It had a really complicated feed system and a really odd looking magazine. It's kind of like a cube magazine, double stacked, with lots of open holes. It was a very heavy mechanism, so it had to be oiled a lot, and that, of course, oil and sand really don't go together, so you're getting lots of jams and stuff. But this crew is sort of shown. The main gunner is all in desert gear. The loader has got his European webbing, and he's got his ammo box, which is obviously couldn't find paint to paint it into desert colours, so it's still in its European colours. So there's the first squad out the way. Second squad now. The sergeant, different figure, of course. I always try to sort of alter the figures so I don't have the same figure in the same position as another squad. He's obviously armed with a full-on Carcano, and he's more or less all in desert gear. I think he is fully in desert gear, actually. But a nice figure. And if we slip him over, Marcello Ordinario, which is sergeant, and Silvano Lanatelli for a name. Let's continue on. So here we have the Corporal for this particular unit. You can see that I've given this one decided to give the Corporal some hat as well in this particular squad. Luckily, these guys are on a slightly thicker base compared to the first squad. So when I was getting them out of their figure, their sort of carrier, I was a little bit confused as to which guy goes into which squad for a few seconds until I saw that they had a slightly thicker base. So this guy is strangely enough, the Italians called their Corporal Sergente, which is really odd. But you can see this guy is Vito Andriano, and yeah, he's all in desert gear by the looks of it. And again, we just quickly run through the rest. So we have another one of those grenade guys. We have again a couple of guys with grey European trousers, and this particular one's also got his European puttees and European webbing. So they've just got their desert helmets and their Sahariana jackets in desert gear. Although this one has managed to get hold of some proper desert puttees. And we have another couple. This guy obviously, again, both with desert gear. And then one more guy here. They are really nice figures, the Italians, which I think gives a big helping hand to, which is perhaps why I enjoyed doing them so much. Even though you're basically just painting 40 of the same chaps, because they're basically 4 squads of 10. basically all out of the same sort of pool of figures. So here we have the alternate Lmg position. This guy, you can see that he hasn't got his, oh yes, he has got his magazine in, but this guy's obviously managed to get hold of some paint to paint his ammo box. And these guys they're all in desert kit, apart from they've got their European putties. So that is the end of the first platoon of infantry, and we'll just move those guys over to there. And we'll start on the second platoon. Again, I'll try and run through these guys pretty quickly. There's not much new stuff to point out really. So first of all, this is the second platoon. The second platoon is based around Burgeslieri, although they do have a unit of regular normal troops attached to them. So again, we have the Warlord officer, although this time he's Burgeslieri. And you can see he's got, again, a slightly different colour on his field jacket. And this particular chap has two helpers. So we have two sergeants, one guy here, and if we just look at the ranks here, Marciello and Marciello, so both sergeants basically. So that is that guy. Then we'll go for the standard infantry. Get those chaps out of the way, and then there's literally just the Burgeslieri to go, and we can call this video bring it to an end. So let's start off with the sergeant. The sergeant and the corporal, actually, we do them together. So again, we have this chap appearing again. This is obviously an ideal figure for a sergeant. Again, and then obviously next to him we have the corporal, and again he's got the sun hat, and yeah, nice couple of command figures. So the sergeant, I think he's a normal sergeant, is he? Marcello Ordinario, yep. And this guy is a sergento, which is corporal. So that's those two guys, and then we'll just run through the infantry again. So again we have chaps that are, I think this particular squad has actually got less European stuff crept in. Again, just basic, the same sort of pool of infantry really. Although we do have one chap here with some European trousers and puttees. And another two really nice positions actually, and you do get a hell of a lot of heads with these teams. Now these guys have got the I'm trying to think of the name of it now, the Bastina Caps, which are basically the soft caps, just for a little bit of variation. So again, nice couple of nice go with a classic Italian moustache there. What's that chap's name? Soldato Celto, which is the senior private Gasto Turco, and his mate Aldaro Mirabito. So that is the second. Oh, actually, we've got the Nmg team. So there we have the Nmg team again. Looks like they're all in desert gear, these guys. So these guys are a little bit better equipped than the first platoon, probably because perhaps they had something to do with them being attached to the Burgeslieri. So that is those. And now finally, the last infantry squad, and then I'll call this video to an end. And I'll probably do the paratroopers next. The paratroopers are a lot smaller. They're obviously just two platoons and some support teams. So let's start off with the sergeant and the corporal again. So this particular, the Burgeslieri kit, actually got this alternate position guy. Now this is probably one of my favourite positions of all the Italian infantry. This guy is absolutely awesome. I mean, I suppose you could kind of use him as an officer if you wanted. I kind of had no choice but to use him as a sergeant. But he's absolutely awesome, and I used my favourite goggled sun hat head, again, which I only had one of, to make this figure absolutely awesome. And he's got the Beretta Lmg, absolutely awesome figure to be the sergeant of the Burgeslieri. So I'm really happy that I actually got this particular figure, because there's only one of him. The Corporal, just a normal sun hatted guy. This guy has actually got the classic Roman nose. Nosy is his nickname. I always remember this particular head having this huge nose. And this chap is a sergeante, so he's a normal corporal, and the sergeant is a Marciello Ordinario, which again is just a normal sergeant. And you can see that these guys have only got the abbreviated name, so perhaps this particular squad should be the second squad in the first platoon. Sergeant G. Sorico, probably Giovanni, I would have thought. Yeah, so that's the sergeant and the corporal. Now obviously these guys again are more or less exactly the same, apart from the fact that they've got their ostrich feathers, which mark them as Burgeslieri. But cool figures all the same, and they came out very, very cool, these guys. Two guys there. Now this particular squad has actually got, have they got 2 Lmgs? No, yes they have. Yeah, this particular team's got 2 Lmgs, which is kind of cool. So here we have another couple of Burgeslieri troops. We have the first Nmg team. You can see it's exactly the same positions, just the heads have changed. And Lmg, yeah, you can see I actually put one of 2 on here. So we have R. Sisti and B. Facioni. It's kind of cool. I actually give names to a lot of my bolt action armies, just about every one actually. There are a few gaps in between where they're sort of new additions and I haven't done it. But generally they've all got names. So here we have another grenade guy and another sort of rifleman. And now the final 3, again I sort of end up with 3 odd guys at the end. So again, strangely enough, I think this is exactly the same position as I ended up in the last squad when I had 3 left. So this chap again, it's actually quite a nice pose actually. Looks like he could be, what is he doing? Perhaps he's just about to work his bolt, or either that or he's just put in a clip, because the Carcano used a 6-round clip that fell out the bottom when it was after you fired your last shot, or loaded your last round actually. And then we have an Lmg team here, the second Nmg team. Again, just the same apart from the Burgeslieri feathers. So that is the end of this revisit of my basic Italian army. I'll probably do the same sort of thing for my paratroopers. They'll be up next, and obviously they're a lot smaller. I think they're basically just a basic platoon plus a few teams. Now obviously you could add from the vehicle pool, you could add a vehicle, but I basically decided to do them in the end, because originally I wasn't going to do them, yeah, we'll go into that a little bit more in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed going back over these guys. I haven't seen them for a good couple of years. I mean, obviously the vehicles I normally keep in my dettol, so whenever I come into my painting room I always see them, and unfortunately there's loads of stuff in front of the door at the moment, and where I'm on crutches I can't actually lift the stuff out of the way. So I had a friend come round at the weekend, and I got him to actually get all my Italian vehicles out of my dettol, and hopefully next weekend if he comes round I'll get him to put them all back again. But yeah, that's the end of the video anyway. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, a big thank you to some extra subscribers. I think I'm like one away from hitting 480 now, which is amazing. Yeah, so until the next one, which will probably be the Italian Paratroopers video, I'll see you all later. Bye bye.